Well, hello everybody. So it's Jay from Just Technics in Colchester and Essex. How are you all doing? You have to bear with me if it looks a bit funny how I'm looking at the screen because obviously I'm now doing this in landscape and not portrait using my Samsung S8 Plus phone. So you will see that every now and then I'm going to be looking at the screen and looking away. Um, Give me just a second, guys. Just going to quickly share this post onto my Facebook for couple of people to look at. Please bear with me. So share, then I'll tell you what's going on. Right, okay, so as stated before, guys, it's Jay from Just Technics. Hope you're having a really good day. And Monday ain't too bad. Mine's been all right. Been very busy indeed with Technics. As you can see behind me, we've got all this behind me here. The one I'm currently working on now that I've just stripped apart. We've then got the cabinet here full of Technics as well. Very busy week this week, lots to get through, and shouldn't really be doing a video, but I'm going to do one to save a few people. I've had a friend of mine who's had a couple of Technics done for me recently. I'm on his, it's going to be his second pair of Technics I've modified for him. And basically he keeps on getting into discussions with people who, quite frankly, don't really know the ins and outs of how these turntables actually work. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of keyboard warriors online, especially with social media and all over forums, these so-called DJs that think they know the differences when they actually don't. Or there's the really big-headed ones that go, I know what I'm talking about, you ain't got a bloody clue. Look, I did a video quite a while ago now regarding, if you remember rightly, about the PLX 1000s, Pioneer PLX 1000s. And if you remember rightly when I did that video, you all would have known that I boxed them up after about a day's worth of use. I couldn't gel with them at all. And the reason I couldn't gel, which is the reason that this video with the title, is because of the digital pitch control. Now, this video here is either going to get people liking it, they're either going to dislike it, they're going to comment and try and tell me different, which is utterly, it's up to you what you do. You know, I'm not here to argue with people. I'm here to state facts. The truth of the matter is this, guys. I mean, I repair, I service, and I customize modified Technics 1200s and 1210s. Okay, that is what I do. I've stripped these down. I know the parts like the back of my hand when it comes to the pitch sliders, when it comes to the pop-ups, the start and stop assembly, the status section, the main board, the power supply. There's loads of parts here that I've taken apart, tinkered with, and I know the difference with them, okay? So, if you're one of the many DJs out there that maybe have a really old pair of Mark IIs, and think to yourselves, do I go for a brand new set of Technics turntables? Sorry, yeah, brand new set of Technics turntables or another pair which is currently on the market. Do I do it, or do I save my money and spend a little bit of it and get my deck serviced? The simple answer is this. There is two different types of DJs. Okay, there's two different types. So you've got one type that scratches. All right, this sounds stupid, but this is how I look at it, because you've got to bear in mind, guys, I've been DJing for over 17 years myself. I class myself as both types. This is why I'm going to get to it. So there's two different types. You've got the scratcher and you got the mixer. Okay, the mixer wants the most accurate pitch resolution of any turntable. He's not bothered about any special trickery. He's not going to, he might do the odd spin back, but that's irrelevant to this. He just wants the pitch control as accurate as it possibly can be. Doesn't want to get into the middle of a mix and start having to move it loads and it starts to go out of time, or he's touching the plateau, or he's touching the top of the record to speed it up. Doesn't want to do any of that. He wants to get it where it needs to be, leave it for about a minute or so, just let it gradually go in and do it again, wind it back, move the needle. You get where I'm coming from. Most DJs on here, if you use 1210s or 1200s or any record, will understand where I'm coming from when it comes to beat matching accurately on a pair of turntables. Now, the second type, like I said, is the scratcher and the mixer. So the scratcher. Now the scratcher isn't really bothered about the beat side of things. He isn't really bothered about beat mixing or getting something that's extremely accurate. All he's really bothered about is a pitch control that's going to move fast. So if he's going to be beat juggling, for an example, or keeping something, he wants something that he knows if he's going to have that pitch on +2, if he moves the other deck to +2, it's going to be accurate there, it's going to stay there, it's going to move there fast, it's not going to let him down. The other thing he needs to bear in mind with this as well, he's really going to want, one other thing he wants is going to be a stable platter, because the last thing you want is something that's going to move. He also wants to make sure that the platter starts and stops fast. It's got plenty of torque, so that when you do move or scratch, you can have plenty of moving. You don't want the platter slowing down. If you can imagine back when you first started DJing, for an example, when you use those horrible belt drive turntables, if you're like me and you use belt drive turntables when you first started, you'll know just how much of a pain in the ass they were to use. Most of them had plastic platters. Some of them also had aluminium platters that moved slower. So when you used to start the deck up, the belt used to struggle turning it round. The plastic ones used to start and stop quite fast, but you'd find that the platter would wobble. So trying to cue on a belt drive turntable, or even the real cheap direct drive turntables, just as bad. So that's where I'm trying to come from. So if you're scratching, the last thing you want is a platter to slowly stop or move or have any vibration. It's very, very important. Now, Technics turntables, okay, what people need to understand is when these decks first came out, it's beyond my time, guys, as well, because I'm only 33. All right, there are people older than me that obviously do servicing. I totally appreciate that. But this is coming from somebody who services turntables and customizes turntables as a full-time job. 6, nearly 7 days a week. I'm found in my office down the road from where I live. Cost me a bloody fortune, but it has to be done. Everybody wants this stuff done. People come at the people they can trust. Okay, these turntables were not originally designed for DJ use. They were designed for hi-fi use. All right. The problem with these turntables was, even for hi-fi decks, and if you were one of the people out there that are old enough to remember when they first came out, because obviously this is beyond my time, but I remember using them for the first time when I bought my first pair brand new, you will know that these turntables weren't exactly fantastic, even for hi-fi use. Now, anybody that knows good audio gear will be able to say exactly the same, and they'll probably agree with me, all right? There were many hi-fi decks out there better than Technics. All right, not just Technics, but 1210s, 1200s. The older version of the 1200 was probably better as well, but a lot of things let these decks down, from the internal wiring of the tone arm itself with damping. The vibrations and stuff was good. They've got a very good rubber weighted bass, that they're good for, so you can't really knock that. And the quartz lock, fine. For listening to records, stick it at 0 or +2 like I normally do, and you're good to go. Now, the more modern turntables that are out there now, they all feature digital pitch sliders, digital pitch control. Now, you've heard me go on about this before in the past, and this is why I'm doing a live video on the page. One, because a couple of my good friends have and customers are getting into heated discussions with people that seem to think they know what they're talking about and arguing the fact, saying digital is better than analog. Now, you need to understand something and the way things are. Digital, in terms of accuracy and reliability, is better than analog. All right. Now, the reason Technics popped digital sliders inside, the digital fader inside their newer versions of Technics, and the M5G and the MK6, if you've ever seen one before, is because a digital fader will last longer. The slider itself isn't digital. Okay, so take that one out of the equation completely. The slider itself isn't digital. It's the controller. Basically where the board, where the actual slider mounts onto the board on a standard MK2, MK3, MK4, and an MK5. Okay, one MK2. I can't forget the major one. They all mount on their own PCB board that has a potentiometer, variable resistor. Okay, that's how you calibrate the slider. With an M5G or an MK6 or the GR, the GAE, or any of the other newer modern turntables, I'll get to that in a minute, they're all controlled digitally. There's a chip on the board, or a couple of chips that are on the board for the pitch. They, in turn, help you mix with the record. So That's what controls the slider. There isn't really any calibration settings with regards to an M5G. An M5G usually has a white rotary pot on the board itself, and in the manual, and a lot of technicians will tell you, all you usually do with these sliders is get your screwdriver, turn it all the way to the right, and that's all you can do. Whereas an MK2, you can manually do it because it's an analog slider with a higher resolution. Okay, now, is that deck is an M5G, a Mark 5, or sorry, an M5G, a Mark 6, or the newer Technics, or the newer turntables on the market? Are they more accurate to mix with than an analog slider? The answer here is no. They are not as accurate to mix on than the older Technics 1210 Mark 2, 3, 4, and Mark 5, or even any of the older turntables on the market. Look at the Vestax. They were the competitors back in the day with Technics. The very old Stantons. I've had belt drive turntables and older Gemini Omnitronics turntables on my bench, and back in the day, years ago, for companies I used to work for, that were more accurate than any modern day turntable that you will buy now. The best way of putting it is this. You must have heard of Hampin. If you know Technics quite well, you may very well have heard of Hampin. Now, Hampin do a lot of motor work with regards to aftermarket parts for turntables. So if you're buying things from Henley Designs, which is reloops, any reloop turntables, Pioneer also fall into that category as well. You've got Cam, you had Gemini. There was a lot of main manufacturers that all dealt with Hampin motors. Now, what they are is they're fantastic for scratching because obviously they're high torque. So high torque motor, start and stop time, boom, straight out the window. Same as Stanton. Stanton are Hampin as well. Okay. Now, what you'll also find with a lot of aftermarket parts with turntables and modern turntables is that you'll notice similarities between them. Okay, you'll notice that the tone arm assembly itself and the base, you'll look at it and you'll go, that looks like a Stanton arm. That looks like a Newmark arm. That looks like a Gemini arm. It's because they are. They are Stanton arms. Most of them are from the ST150S. So have you ever heard of a straight 150 with a straight tone arm? It's basically that assembly, but the ST150S was the same version, but had the S-bend tone arm. So having the straight turntable arm, you had the S-bend arm. They're exactly the same. Okay, there are turntables out there now by a mate called oh bloody hell, I have it in my head every 20 seconds and I completely forgot the name of it, but basically DJ Tech did a very similar version of one as well. They cost about 150 quid retail, and they kick the crap out of anything from Stanton and any of the other modern decks. They're exactly the same, and the one I'm talking about also has the same pitch control slider and fader unit as the PLX 1000 Pioneer. So it's 150 quid retail. You save yourself all that money. So for 300 quid, you could pick yourself up a pair of decks that may not look as pretty as the Pioneer, or if you like that sort of thing, but they're just as good, if not better. In fact, they're probably better because the PLX 1000, the base assembly is all made out of plastic. You want something that's made out of a high density foam, rubber, it's well weighted. You don't want to just touch the top and the whole thing vibrates. It resonates through your speakers. It's horrible. It's very, very bad. So why is a Technics slide? Sorry, why are Technics Mark 5G and the GAE and the GR decks, why are they not as accurate as a Mark II? Okay, so this is it. Like I explained to you earlier, if you're using a digital slider, it gets there quicker. All right? It gets there quicker. It stays locked. But the problem that you have with a digital slider is that in the increments it moves in is 0.02 decimal points. So it moves digital step. Okay, so it's stepped. So if you imagine you're moving the slider and there's tiny little adjustments like you do on your Mark IIs. Okay, if you've got a good set of Mark IIs that have been serviced or well calibrated, you will know the smallest little movement on those decks makes the marginal difference, and your beats will match up perfectly for about 60 seconds to a minute, maybe if you're lucky, and you've got to move it again or touch to slow it down. With digital, it locks straight on. So with 0.2 resolution, basically what I'm saying is you can move it, but if you imagine that smallest little movement you do on a Mark II, it moves it gradually just about where you need it to be. It's so precise with a high resolution. On a digital slider, you don't get that. It's basically, instead of it being smooth like that on a Mark II, it's doing this. It's stepped. So instead of having one continuous long movement, which is nice and smooth, that hits every single section because it's analog and not digitally controlled, digital sliders don't do that. They move in steps. That's why it's called digital step. So where you think you're doing that small, precise little movement and you think you can move it just that little bit to get it bang on, all you're actually going to do, and 9 times out of 10 you'll find this if you've got them, all you actually do is move it past where you need it to be, which will then throw your mix off. So you try moving it back. And when you try moving it back, it gets you back to exactly the same point where you were before. And you will find you cannot hit that point where you want it to be. So the old school DJ will go, okay, then if I can't do it on that deck, I'll adjust the other one. So if you're playing a track that's too slow on the left deck and you need to speed it up to match the right one, you'll try speeding it up, won't you? But the small problem you got is because the other deck's digital as well, you try moving that small little bit and all it's going to do again, it's going to overshoot where you need it to be. So what do? You move it back. So the truth is this: you will never beat match properly on those decks unless you've got the way that I usually find it is if you buy, say for example, you like hard dance, you like tidy tracks for an example, right, or Nucleus Records or any of that stuff. Tidy's probably the best one to go by with this. If you buy most stuff from Tidy, most of the older stuff, you probably find that the BPMs of Tidy records are usually around the same BPM because everyone likes the same style of music, the same producers, all same sort of BPM. Like if you're mixing techno, if you're into your slower techno, 128 BPM. I call that slow because I'm into my old school stuff, which is 140 BPM. You know, completely different to the new stuff. But you imagine you've got 1 BPM of record and it's been recorded in 128 BPM. You know, when you get these the two records together on a deck, 9 times out of 10 you should lock them fairly straightforward. It's a numbers game. Those people that put it this way, CDJs, okay? CDJs, digital increment scale. Now you'll be able to mix easy on CDJs and you probably get on both and go, I mix easier on CDJs than I do on vinyl. But the truth of the matter is this, they're both pretty much the same scale with digital because they've got a digital slider on both because one's spinning around but puts you off thinking that it's a different format. Yes, you're still playing records or you're playing DVS or whatever you're doing, but it still moves in digital steps. So where you think you're moving a small amount, it's actually moving in steps on a CDJ as well. So it's basically the same procedure of a CDJ. So if you're one of these guys watching going, well, how come I can beat Mick's piece of piss then on a pair of CDJs, but I can't beat match on a turntable? It's because of the motor. It works in a different way. If you're going to slow down a track on a CDJ, what do? If you got it on CDJ mode, you can touch the platter and move it back, can't you? Just a fractional amount and it'll get it in time. Maybe for that split second and move it back out and you keep adjusting. But you'll notice you keep adjusting. All right, some tracks you've got to keep adjusting. Now, if you do that on a turntable, on a Mark 5G or a newer turntable, what will happen if you've got to slow down a track on a CDJ, you'll touch the side of the platter or you touch the platter itself, top of the section. On the turntable, when you go to slow it down, on a new turntable, you will notice that the smallest little movement, the platter will, you see it in the strobe, the platter will start doing this. And what actually happens, okay, is because you're trying to slow down the deck, if you've got a deck at +4 pitch and you're trying to slow that down, what's the motor trying to do to the turntable? What's it trying to do? It's thinking to itself, oh shit, this shouldn't be doing this. Why is it slowing down? So what the deck's doing is trying to keep it at that speed. So if you're playing a track at +4 and you're trying to slow that track down, all it's going to do is try and fight you to get back to that speed. So when you let go of it, it's going to fly up quick to the speed it was at before. Now Mark IIs, Mark III, 4 and Mark 5. If you've never heard of a Mark III or you've never heard of a Mark 4, or sorry, Mark 4, you need to have a look at that because they're, again, different kettle of fish. Again, it's analog, free speed adjustments. Not going to go into that now though. But with Mark II or any of the old analog ones, a bit different. They're a little bit more forgiving because they're analog and because the motors are a little bit older on this stuff now. You can touch them and they gradually go back up. There's a method you can do as well which actually bypasses this, so that this doesn't happen. So you can keep your finger on the platter and it gradually moves it. That's one way of doing it. But that's why you find you can't mix on them, because digital is digital. With a turntable that's spinning around and you trying to slow it do it, it's going to try and correct itself all the time. CDJs don't do that. Don't try and correct themselves. You move it to slow it down. There's a principle there. You move the side to slow it down. But you will find that if you've got the pitch range set at a higher pitch range, you will find that moving that and beat matching is going to be very difficult. So for an example, not just with like Stantons or any of the newer turntables, let's just say you've got a deck that's got plus or minus 50% pitch. Okay, what do you think happens when you switch your deck from +8 to plus 50% pitch? The resolution is going to increase even more and more and more. The smaller the resolution, all right, the smaller the resolution, the smaller the range you've got, the more accurate your pitch is going to be. The more you can play about, the more you can move it smallly, and it should then push it out. If you've got a digital slider and it's at +8, you'll know, like I said, it's at steps. So what's happening when you do it and you change it to a plus 50% pitch? The steps are going to be even bigger because it's going to keep going up and down, even wider pitch range. So it's even more unable to mix in tracks properly because it's digital. It just doesn't work like an analog slider. Now, what some DJs used to do, like Dave Angel's the classic, for example. Dave Angel, a really old school techno pioneer. If you've got a lot of his stuff, you may do, may not. You know, not even heard of him. But either way, Dave Angel, what he used to do with turntables, and I get a lot of turntables coming through which used to be used by Dave Angel, ironically. A couple of decks I had in here were used by him. Set them back. Now, what happens is he used to play sets in clubs, and he used to walk up to a pair of Technics. He'd then turn the deck off. He'd take the platter off. Okay, he'd pull a screwdriver out of his bag, he'd undo the 5 screws, take the plastic cover off. Then what he'd do is the pitch potentiometer at the top of the deck, he'd move that all the way to the right. What that basically does is basically gives you roughly around +10, +11% pitch and about -10. Okay, so you think, oh, that's brilliant, you get a higher range. He does that so that he can mix in slower, various different genres of music into what he's mixing, so he can mix in a different track to one that he couldn't normally do because the decks only go up to plus or -8. Well, when you think about it, it's 3% difference, not really worth the aggro, but he's done it. He does what he's done. He's mastered his art and what he does. Fair play to the guy, right? But the problem you got then is he used to put the platter back on with the cover, screw it all that down, put the platter back on after he finished his set, or and just leave it as it was. So he never set them back to how they were, and it's impossible to set them exactly how they are without the tools to do it. Okay, so he used to walk out of his club after a set, and the DJ after him, you'd always find, couldn't beat mix his tracks properly because they're at a higher range, and because he's increased the range, the pitch sliders are not as accurate. So if you think of it like that, and you're trying to mix on a deck that's not as accurate, that's what it feels like beat matching on a brand new modern turntable. The majority of any video that you see on YouTube for a classic, because this is a classic, I'm sure this is going to get dissed by a lot of DJs, but I don't care because I tell you as it is. You will see the majority of DJs 99.9% of the time with these new turntables doing videos on YouTube, you will see when the minute they've got that fader open and that channel fader open, either the mixers sound all right for the first couple of bars and then they go off too fast or too slow. That's the first thing. The next thing you will notice is their hand, or one of those hands, is constantly glued to the pitch control slider of the deck that's opened, and they're moving it. Why do you think they're doing that? Because it's not in time. And it's not because they're a bad DJ, it's because they think that's what they have to do, because these newer decks are all the same. If they use older Technics, they'd think, why the bloody hell were they doing that? Okay, but also they're moving it because it's going out of time, so they're trying to fight the turntables pitch control to try and get it to move in. So us old school boys that used to play with vinyl, but they never used to touch the platter or the sides of the platter, like Dave Pearce used to do that. He's adamant you should never touch the turntable. I think Billy Bunter was the same as well. There's quite a few old school boys that would never touch the platter. It was always just touch the pitch control and keep it where it was. So you're basically pitch bending constantly to keep it in, but gradual movement. Now, it's easy to move it because on a newer turntable, it's easy to move because it moves faster. But because I said before, because it's stepped, it's much harder to keep them in the mix and get them beat matched. You always get them just about where you want, but you'll never get them bang on. Now, like I say, so the first thing I'll do is then have the fader open, and the beat will sound okay for the first couple of bars, it will then start the sound to go off, or mine times they usually just sound off full stop. It's not because they're a bad DJ, it's because the pitches are shit on them, you can't match them up properly. Then what they're doing is they're battling away and they're fading down the track with the other hand, or they're trying to adjust the pitch with the other hand, and the same thing's happening like I told you all before, they're trying to fight something they can't win with. So the pitch will be crap, and the mix goes out of time, and they've got to throw the fader off. You try and find me a mix which is flawless on a pair of Mark 5s, sorry, M5Gs, without any modification. Now I'm going to put that in there because I modify M5Gs as well, which makes them slightly more accurate. Okay, and if you don't believe me, go on my page, post on my page asking the question. There's a couple of customers that will come straight up to you and they will say, he's not bullshitting, he's telling the truth. This is brilliant. It makes a massive difference. One of my customers I did this for, called Andrew, comes in, drops his turntables into me, well pissed off of his. He had a pair of M5Gs. Loves the look of them. They're the best looking pair of Technics out of all of them. I love them as well. They're great. But he was unhappy with the pitch control. I did a couple of mods while he was out for a couple of hours. He comes back, comes in, told him to mix on them. The bloke could not believe the difference. I've also recorded a mix as well, a hard dance mix, which is on Mixcloud, one of my mixes, using a pair of M5Gs and a Mark II turntable. Just M5Gs are mixed into each other, and the Mark II is for scratching, which is my third deck. And you would even see on there and agree, the beat mixing about blowing my own trumpet, you will agree, banging, absolutely banging, mix, bang on, spot on mix, no train wrecks, no slightly going off, apart from right at the end where the needle skips on one of the decks because I hadn't serviced the deck, and through the mix I've spun them both back and stopped the recording. So, like I'm saying here, guys, newer turntables, don't just get rid of your Mark IIs or Mark Vs or whatever you've got because you think they're going to be better because they're new. That is not the case. These Mark IIs, Mark Vs, whatever you've got of the older decks, they're better for a reason because of the analog sliders. If you have Vestax PDX 2000s, they were quite good as well. Again, a bit funny to mix with, but they were a bit more durable, I found, for scratching as well than a lot of the older decks too. So if you're going to go for anything, they're good. People will sit there and argue with you and say that, you know, Stantons are better, then Vestax are better, then these bloody reloops are better. Look, all these manufacturers, they do not make these and produce these for the mixing DJ in mind. They seem to all think and get together and think that all these DJs, all they want to do is scratch on them. Look, I scratch and I mix. I want the best of both worlds. If I've got a deck that I can't mix on, I'm not going to keep it. If it's not going to hold its BPM, what's the bloody point of having one? If you're a trance DJ, why are you going to want a deck that you can't beat mix on? If you're a house DJ, why are you going to want it? You don't want to listen to something that's constantly going out of time. Everyone's going to notice it. And in reality, in this day and age, everyone uses CDJs now at clubs or controllers, take laptops with Serato, etc. It doesn't matter, does it? Because you can walk into a club, use what they've got, perfect mix. The punters don't give a shit what you're playing because all they're bothered about is hearing. They don't care how you're mixing. As long as they hear the tracks they want, fucking bloody Khalees and bloody, what was it, Beyonce and David Guetta and all that crap. As long as they hear what they want to hear, they don't care how it is. And I bet if you beat Max badly in a club, half of them don't notice either. It's not like it used to be. Like, you used to get people hovering over and doing it, watching what your every move was doing. With more respect because you're playing on vinyl. Technology's technology, guys. You go with the times. You have to do what you have to do. If a club's only got CDJs, that's all you can use. That's just that. But don't believe the hype. Do not believe the hype with all these new turntables. It's too easy to get carried away. The one I hear a lot is from people that message me going, have you tried the Denons? I don't touch anything that's new now. I don't touch anything at all. I refuse to work on turntables service-wise other than Vestax, because Vestax were good. They've stopped now. Such a shame, but Vestax, I can do the odd thing on there, hard to get parts for, and Technics, obviously, because I'm called Just Technics. That's my business. That's my bread and butter. That's what makes me the living. That's what I do. So I don't touch any of the newer ones. I'll have a play about and laugh at them. I don't diss any turntable for its build quality. I diss it for what it can and can't do. If it can't mix, shouldn't be used. Pioneer or a classic one for that. I had an argument with who was it? The UK manager for Pioneer DJ, BPM at Birmingham back a fair few years ago. We ended up going into Gatecrasher in Birmingham because we all managed to get VIP entry because obviously when I used to work for a DJ shop, we all got entry there. So I went in there. I ended up having a massive Barney with. It actually involved the UK manager for Sony as well. This was quite funny. We were in a smoking area having a fag, and I asked Pioneer DJ's rep straight outright, and the technical guy there, I said, "Why do you only produce digital sliders for these decks, and why do you not market them towards DJs that actually mix and not do it just towards people that scratch?" And the guy couldn't answer my question, kept swaying the question. I'm not mentioning names because there's no need to get that. Some people getting back with me like that. But he couldn't answer it. He didn't want to answer it. Then he got pissed off with me. And then the funniest part was the guy standing back to back with me, which I didn't know at the time. He was from Sony and he argued the toss as well. He turned around and he goes, "Actually, Jay's got a point here," because he heard me say my name, introduced myself. He goes, "Jay's got a point here." He goes, "You guys just think of the money." He goes, "You don't think of the working DJs that actually want to mix and don't want to use CDJs to match things up. But you don't think of all that. All you think is this. It's money." And that was actually quite funny because those two started arguing. I left it at that. So I tapped them both on the shoulder and buggered off down the stairs back to one of the club rooms, back to a bar. But yeah, it just goes to show these things. Look, these decks, right, guys, if they're well maintained, I mean, look at the state of that, right? It is bloody filthy, absolutely filthy, right? But I can guarantee you right now, by the time I finish with that, and I've given it a bloody good clean up, serviced it, taken the slider apart, giving it a full-on go over, they're going to be great, and it'll be a fantastic mix of the unit to mix on. And it just goes to show. I mean, analog is fractal. All right, it's fractal pitch. It moves the smallest little amount you move it. It will mix to that point. Okay, it's ultra precise. Digital moves to 0.02 or 0.2. It's not as precise as analog. All these people out there that keep arguing the toss and saying digital is more accurate to mix with, it's not true. It's not. Yes, digital is more reliable in the long term. Longevity of the faders, longevity of everything in general, they're good. But you're living in a throwaway society, guys. You're lucky this day and age if something lasts you a year. I mean, God forbid you go out and buy a Gemini turntable or mixer or something, it lasts you a year. Numark just as bad. You can buy things out of a box that are faulty. And trust me, guys, I used to work in a service technician's room. I've seen return items come back from customers. I've seen them come back to us when I used to work for people. They come back to us broken. You know, the one you step away from and you don't touch with a barge pole is American Audio. An American, not really American DJ, because they're not the DJ side of it, that's lighting. American Audio and Gemini, two of the biggest pieces of shit you will ever deal with regards to reliability. They will let you down big time in a club. I've seen it happen. I've nothing you can do about it. There's no way of saving anything. And their turntables are just copycats from Hampin, exactly the same. So be very careful. Sotronic was another one. Cam went bust. You remember Cam, which are Lambert, they went bust as well. So there's no obviously there's reasons why they went bust. Intimidation with a lot of their old school mixers and things. They were great, but again they went bust. These people come and go, and it says why. Now Technics have brought out their newer GR and GAE. As you all know, the GAEs, they're like their signature range, basically, like the M5G was the Grandmaster. So it's the Grandmaster version, basically, of their new GR range, which is all well and good if you want something that looks really pretty, that has a different platter. You know, there's all different things. The GR, on the other hand, now the motor itself is brushless, which is great. It's made differently, and I can't fault the turntable like that. The only thing I can fault it with is two things. One of which is the pitch, because it's digital. So again, if you're buying that, you might as well go out and buy these cheaper decks I'm on about for 150 quid, because the beat mixing is going to be pretty much exactly the same. All right, they basically use the Mark M5G pitch sliders in them anyway. So if you get Mark 5Gs cheaper, get them if you really want them. But there's no point, because it's not going to be as accurate unless you want something that looks good that you can scratch on. The second thing which you will notice with a new Technics turntable, which will really piss you off and you'll wonder why the hell it's done in the first place, is you will notice how wobbly they are when you have them on your stand or your deck stand and you try scratching. You'll notice just how much they move. The feet on the new Technics are terrible, but you need to understand something here, guys. Like I explained to you earlier, Technics did not design the MK2 or any of the range of decks apart from the Mark V and the M5G. They're the only two they designed for DJ use. The rest of them weren't. Okay, they didn't design it for DJ use. They designed it to put a needle on a record and play. That is it. Now, bear that in mind. You can now understand if you're moving a record backwards and forwards and trying to scratch the record or cue it, it's going to move with the feet. So the first thing you have to do if you are adamant on buying a brand spanking new pair of Technics, the first thing you do, and you have to do, is buy yourself a set of feet for both turntables. Now already you are going to be wasting between 25 and 30 pounds. Cheaper if you're very lucky. 25 quid I'd say per foot of your Technics. So you're already going to be looking for one for one turntable, £25 per feet. So that's 50 quid for two. That's £100 per deck. So you're already going to be out of pocket 200 quid from the minute you hand over your credit card or your cash or whatever to walk out of that shop. The minute you hand over your card, you are losing. You got to spend out another 200 quid on feet, which means you got to go back, nick the feet off your current Technics just to be able to use them properly. Sorry guys, yeah, just bloody thing. Just to be able to use it properly, you have to go out and buy the feet, which sounds like a joke, but it's not. It is a joke on terms if you shouldn't have to do that. Where's my bag gone? Sorry guys, my battery's running low on my bloody phone. Yeah, you shouldn't have to do that, because you should think to yourself, well, you know, you bought it for the purpose, why do I have to do that? But like I've just said to you, they weren't designed for DJ use. The Technics, Panasonic don't care if you're going to use it for DJing. They don't care if the platter moves. Why the hell should they? All they're bothered about is you buying them. Sorry guys, plugging my phone into my charger and moving it around at the same time probably isn't it. There we go. Right. Okay. So yeah. You need to understand they don't make them for DJ use. The 5 and the 5G were for DJs. That's it. That is it. Never mind these gold ones. Never mind any of the newer ones. Never mind any of that. That is the truth of these turntables. I used to stack those decks 5 on a 6 foot high stand, probably 10 abreast on top. 5 or 6 up, 6 on top, 10 down on a massive rack. Racks of the stuff, brand spanking new from the M5Gs, 1200 limiteds, the golds, the M5G golds, the Mark V, the Mark III, and the Mark II. All of them. The Mark IV was more Japan with removable cables, and the MK6 was the final edition that they brought out before they stopped the current range of the range of Technics. So again, that's got a digital slider, but looks like a Mark V. So I want people to understand, and I know there's a couple of people that are going to probably argue the toss, and I don't care. Put your comments down if you really want to. Anyone that's watching, like I say, if you want info on this stuff, you've only got to ask me. I'm not the only person that's going to tell you that a digital slider is not as accurate for mixing than the analog slider is, because it's quite obvious that it's not. Analog is analog. Maybe inaccuracy at some point, it may drift out slightly, but in the long term, it's going to last you. It's going to be better for mixing. The smallest little movement is what you want. You don't want something that's going to be, I want to move it a small amount. It's moving like this. You're never going to get it in that point. That little point that you want it to mix on, you're never going to get that. The only way around that is by doing my little mod. Now, I'm not telling anybody about this, but like I said, a couple of my customers have had it done, and they're happy as hell, because you can mix on them, and the mix lasts longer. But I'm not telling anybody. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. It's as simple as that. I'll do it for you, but that's it. But yeah, that's it. So guys, please, you can argue, you can comment, you can call me a liar if you want. I don't care. I do this for a living. This is what I do. And then out of all the turntables I've ever done, I'd say probably out of 100 decks, let's give it 100 decks. So if they, let's say out of 100 decks, I've probably done about two or four. Four M5Gs. Everything else has been Mark 5, Mark 3, and Mark 2 because these DJs all know that they're the ones to go for because they know it's more accurate. I have people now with M5Gs moaning and messaging saying they don't like them. Why do they not mix very well? And you know, people say to me, can you put M5G pitch sliders in a Mark 2? Now, truth is this, guys. Truth is this. You can put a digital like M5G slider inside a Mark II or a Mark 5, anything like that. You can, because it's not the slider that's digital. It just won't calibrate properly because it's not designed for use within that turntable. The same as when you've got people that put Mark 5 sliders, Mark 3 sliders inside a Mark II. It won't calibrate properly because the first thing people try and do when they try and calibrate a slider from a Mark 5, Mark 3 and a Mark 2, the first thing they'll try and do is move the pitch pot so the +6 stops. That's not what you want to do because it's pushing the rev, it's pushing it too far. It's not made for that deck. I'm not going to get into any of that. But again, that's just how these things are now, guys. Unfortunately, digital's the way forward with a lot of stuff. So it's going to be harder for us vinyl DJs to mix on these newer turntables because digital, unfortunately, is not as accurate for mixing. It's better for playing. It's better to keep things steady, better for keeping the motor steady. And that term is a lot better, but it's not as accurate for mixing. So with that in mind, guys, if you have any arguments with people about digital versus analog versus digital, with people saying digital's better, just explain to them analog pitch is fractional. Okay, digital pitch moves at a 0.2 decimal limits. Okay, it's digital step. Tell them it's stepped, and the best way of describing it is like I've just told you a couple of minutes ago. Tell them that it's precise with analog, smallest little movements. Okay, to get your gradual little bit of pitch. With digital, because it's stepped, if you imagine you're moving it slowly to get where you want, just that fraction, you try doing that on a digital slider. You move it, you'll be doing this. You're never going to get it in that sweet spot because the pitch won't allow you to do that. That's the best way of saying it. Digitally, there's stepped pitch, digital step, harder to mix with because gradual little movements are big movements, not small. Tell them that. If they disagree after that, tell them to message me on my Facebook page. It's as simple as that because that's the truth. That is the truth. Any competitor out there, I may fall out with competitors because they don't like me or whatever reason. I don't really care. Some of them do, some of them don't. I don't care in the slightest. I'm straight as they come with this stuff. And the truth is they will agree with that as well. They probably agree with me that it's not as good for DJing because they know it's not. It's better for accuracy within the speed. That's it. That's all it is. So the best advice I'll give you is this. If you are a scratch DJ and you want something that's going to move pitch quicker for beat juggling, the M5G or any of the new turntables will do you perfectly. In fact, it's probably more of a plus for you because you're going to have something that's got higher torque. So the platter's going to rip your fingers off. So yes, their new turntables are fantastic for turntablists. That's why they have the switchable pitch, not because you can mix. No one's going to use 50% pitch on the turntable to mix, are they? Let's be realistic, and you can't anyway. It's too high. It's too high and inaccurate. So that's the best advice I'll give you with that. Scratch DJs, use them. They're brilliant. But then us Technics diehard faithful people or people that are just used to a good quality mixing tool will tell you analog's the way forward because they're the most accurate turntable on the market with Vestax when they had them, and that's pretty much that. So guys, bear that one in mind. Anybody that gives you any grief, tell them that quantization is the main problem, and that's a long big word to use because the digital pitch is stepped. Quantization, keeping them locked. Okay, you will find it easier to mix two tracks with the same BPM on a pair of M5 or a pair of Mark IIs than you will do on an M5G because you can't get them to lock properly. The best way of putting it is this: get yourself a Mark II. If you've got a mate that's got an M5G and you've got a Mark II or even a Mark V, take your deck round now, get him to bring his deck to you, right? Get both your records that you want to mix together, that you know on your Mark II will mix together perfectly. Put both records on it. Put them both to 0, okay? Move one of them just off of 0 on the Mark II. Move it just off of 0, okay? And then say to your mate, match up that your deck on your Mark V, match the beats with that record to the record on the Mark II. Yeah? Do that and watch them struggle. Because like I've just said, the smallest little movement, they won't get into the sweet spot, which means you won't be able to match the beat. Now, if you do it the other way round and you then put them both to 0, move the Mark V and put that just off of the green, and then you turn around and say to your mate, match the Mark II to the Mark 5G, that will work, because the smallest little movement, as long as your deck is well serviced and it's not going to jump straight away the minute it goes off the green and you've got it set how it should be, that will mix properly. Get them to do that. And if they still are adamant that Mark 5s are better, M5Gs are better, or the newer turntables are better, get them to record a bloody mix and tell them to do that. Do exactly what I've just said, and that will stop the arguments dead. And even if you use, here's another one as well, if you use timecode DVS vinyl and you're using it through your computer and you've got someone that says that's more accurate if you use it with M5Gs, that's rubbish as well. It's not. It is not. It's still digitally stepped. The rotates the motor. It's going through. The audio is exactly the same. But that is the problem with it. Digital step. Okay. I think that's pretty much all I can really say. But analog resolution is better. It's as simple as that. There's no other way of putting it. Analog is more accurate, more precise, and easier to live with for DJ mixing than the digital sliders are. And that's the end of that, guys. I'm going to leave that there, I think, because otherwise I'm going to start repeating myself. But please, guys, bear that in mind. Share with your DJ mates if they're going to disagree. There's a couple of people I know on my page that are going to be sharing this. They've probably already commented now, which is going to be quite funny. But there you go. Any questions about anything I'm talking about with this video, or if you want to get your deck serviced, customized, or anything at all, feel free to find me over a message on my Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/Just Technics, all one word. My website is www.justtechnics, all one word, justtechnics.co.uk. Get us on there. You can fire us over a message. There's a price list on there. And if you're in the UK, obviously you can get through to us. If you do live abroad, you can get me to service your decks as well, as long as you pay for the courier costs and pay the import tax, etc. But yeah, get us on there with any questions, and I'm quite happy to answer them for you. But yeah, have fun, guys. Hopefully your mates will understand where I'm coming from, and the guys that asked me to do the video, I hope this has been some help for you. So guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Take it easy. See you later. And how the hell do I stop this video? See you later, guys.